So now I'm pleased to introduce our first speaker of the day, which will be Professor Kornilov. Professor Kornilov holds a PhD in technology and a doctorate in sociological sciences. He has wealth of experience and is a distinguished record of scholarship in his field. He has authored over 200 publications, including 5 monographs and more than 20 textbooks and manuals, as well as dozens of inventions. One of his most important works is the monograph called Fundamentals of Engineering Art. Professor Kornilov's research interests include methods of scientific and technical creativity, as well as the philosophy of technology. His insights into these areas have been critical to shaping our understanding of how to effectively navigate the complexities of the modern world. We are delighted to have Professor Kornilov with us today to share his expertise. The title of Professor Kornilov's presentation is Integration Process, Randomness, or Regularity, and it's original in Russian. Thank you, Professor Kornilov.
Да, спасибо за приглашение на конференцию. И вчера было очень интересное выступление. Попробую в таком же русле продолжить и сегодня. Сейчас я открыл экран. Надеюсь, его видно. Увеличу сейчас. Вот наш экран. Да, процесс интеграции, случайность или закономерность. Но сначала в качестве небольшого введения определение понятия. Процесс интеграции при обучении или интегрированное обучение обусловлен необходимостью создания у современников и будущих поколений целостной, гармоничной картины мира и на ее основе формирование творческой личности, личности, способной к саморазвитию. Само сообщение или доклад построено из 2 частей. Первая часть – это очень краткий обзор выступлений на конференциях ИВРИ в предыдущие годы. А вторая часть – примеры интегрального подхода у разных авторов в самое разное время за последнее столетие. В введении надо упомянуть хотя бы кратко, что попытки комплексного подхода для эффективной взаимосвязи между людьми имеют довольно многочисленные примеры. Я остановлюсь только на 2. Несколько десятилетий тому назад фундаментальные направления, связанные с физикой и химией, соединились и появились такие научно-исследовательские и академические институты, как Институт физической химии. То же самое произошло с направлениями социологии и психологии. Возникла социальная психология. То есть эта тенденция, она имеет общий характер, связанный с самыми разными дисциплинами. Вот в этой первой части очень краткое упоминание о содержании первых 3 выступлений. Одно из них было в 2019 году, и называлось оно «Мир без границ. Утопия или реальность». Вот эта вот часть, она связана с тем, что необходимо внедрение новой парадигмы. Можно ее обозначить как интегральность. А на примере политической карты мира очень хорошо видно, как до настоящего времени страны пытаются перетянуть на себя какие-то территории. И наш земной шар, вот развернутый здесь на плоскости, показывает такой калейдоскоп, который
try to adhere to them other areas.
развития и
And this is what we came as a result of our development
граничного между друг другом расположения как стран,
and country being adjacent to one another.
примерно 50-40 лет тому назад
Approximately
вплотную подошел
40-50 years ago,
качественное изменение своего существования.
the world was in danger of ending its existence.
Обострилось почти до предела.
We can call it as a point of bifurcation that
Что делать?
came to its full development.
Похожие типовые ответы, которые
We have various answers to that, which are really not really answers.
прекрасное будущее,
How to realize a beautiful future, that it's possible for the humanity as a whole.
Конечно, основной вопрос
And of course,
это
a main question
смысл жизни.
is the meaning of life.
В настоящего времени его постоянно пытаются заменить тем,
So far,
что я
that
называю
question
сказки для взрослых.
tried to be substituted with some lullaby for adults, as I call it,
И тому подобное.
some kind of games or something.
По этому сообщению было сделано несколько выводов.
So there's a few conclusions about it. First conclusion,
Именно вот эта постановка вопроса, как
so
основной
the first thing
который потом
should be how to educate
или
a child correctly.
используются все остальные знания. В чем смысл моей
And then we could
здесь на Земле?
educate a child
По этому докладу,
further
на основе тех материалов, которые
by
вы представили.
giving knowledge and all other
В
things.
основе воспитания должна быть постановка или создание понимания
So my second conclusion is it should be knowledge integration.
вывод был связан с тем, что
And the
необходимо
third conclusion,
принятию решений на основе
we need to
системного
transition to systematic decision making.
Следующий слайд – это
My next slide
еще одно сообщение, еще один доклад в 2021
is another presentation that I had in 2021
магистров, где сравнивалось
in this institute, Ivry Institute,
прошлые века,
how
после 500-600
how in the past
лет тому назад,
they
и что происходит
prepared magisters and what happened as a result.
сегодня. Основное противоречие между
So it was the main controversy was identified.
я кратко здесь поясню.
So in the system of higher education,
Тем, что приобретает человек громадное количество
so
компетенций,
person acquires
но при этом
a lot of competency,
вот этого синтеза,
but
и это сформулировано на этом
there's no
одном слайде,
synthesis.
основная проблема современной школы,
So this is the main problem
образовательная.
of contemporary school.
Я прочту второй здесь вывод. Он
So I read another conclusion, that the analysis of the objects is carried out with the help of various modules, separate subject knowledge. But the problem of synthesis is unsolved. And the higher education included. And with that, we see new competencies. It's the ability to acquire new knowledge in conditions of significant uncertainty of the problem being. So what's the conclusion about what I said so far? There was this quote of Kozma Prutkov: the specialist is like a flux. His fullness is one-sided. The comprehensive, integral approach to learning, it's a very serious, fundamental material
уже не только на четвертую, как
So
написано.
this is a solution of ontological problems and should be focused on the development of relationships
Онтологических проблем надо ориентировать на взаимосвязь
between
между гуманитарными
the
и
humanities,
научными
natural science,
техническими знаниями.
and technical
Вывод
knowledge.
по этому сообщению, что
So the conclusion about it is that we need to have not only knowledge, but understand effectiveness of it. So we have complex of academic disciplines for masters. My other past presentation that I had in 2022, where I tried to explain in practice how to realize all those postulates. This is the question about history textbooks. And as a summary, I would like to ask this question: how to become a human, like real human? And the conclusion that I have, that it is necessary to completely change the consciousness of people, explaining the true meaning of existence on Earth. But this can only be done through training, integral approach, and related textbooks, primarily history textbooks. So that was the part that I made a conclusion on. Some of the summary and examples of comprehensive integral approach. And a second part, I had an examples that were realized, but in my view, were not really realized completely. So this is, first of all, Philosophy of Technology by Engelmeyer. So the direction of creativity is possible only in 4 directions. It's a science, technology, art, and ethics. And at the end of my thinking about it, I could put a formula so we could combine all those together. The truth, false beauty, ugliness, good or evil, and benefit or harm. So what will happen, the result, plus or minus? Would that be positive or negative effect as a result of this activity? And second, what I would like to say about is Henrik Samuelich Altschuler, who presented life strategy of creative personality. He had a book, How to Become a Genius, that had very interesting points that reflects what's on this slide is a system of thinking and development of creativity in a person. In that book, there are examples of properties of creative personality. It's like determination of a worthy of goal. The third that I would like to say is it's a deep and unexpected idea connected to bank of negative effects. The thing is that patent fund in any country, international fund, has millions of new inventions, but all the patents has the same thing. It shows only positive effect, and the negative effects are not looked at. But we know that any change in the system on important criteria positive criteria partially would lead to negative results. It's just a necessary fact, because our world is a world of artificial, and in the future, new inventions will be realized. But for today, we have a strange situation. Only positive effects are evaluated. So it's a narrow worldview of the specialist, only on the problem that he is focused on. So I offer to look at the process of creativity through two directions, from mind and algorithm to what we called a soul, emotion, and imagination. So we had this formula, rational and irrational. So we could look at it and understand better a technical conclusion. So what's the summary that I have about this? The first is that analysis of various numerous sources devoted to integration in upbringing and education showed us that, as a rule, this process is implemented using a formally bureaucratic approach. For example, natural science textbooks, where the three subjects are collected under one cover: physics, chemistry, and biology. It's just a collection of three textbooks in one, but that's not an integration. It does not correspond to what we try to achieve. And the second, not only the concept, but the whole concept of preparing educational material should not be based only on anthropological approach. It is necessary to rethink knowledge and form a new paradigm of education and upbringing. This is what I tried to achieve when I wrote the history book that reflects not just the facts, but creative thinking. And the third conclusion is, for the upbringing of harmonious personality, special attention to the role of rational and irrational in human activity should be paid. And in conclusion, I would say that the new concepts of education proves all the summaries that I made before. Education should be based on the systematic approach. Here we have some of the works on the authors, like history and basis of engineers' activities and basis of technical fundamentalist discipline. And in conclusion, what our world will be in the future? And the answer depends on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kornilov. A question did come in from YouTube. The question is, how do different cultural perspectives influence the process of integration? And what specific factors should educators be aware of when working with diverse groups of students?
Здесь ответ и очень простой, и очень...
Here, the answer is simple and complex at the same time, because we need combination of integral approach based on the culture, the mentality, and that system of values that people have in this auditory audience. It could be various and very different, but at the same time, we need to show a common structure on the level of cosmic thinking. So,
И тогда появляется прообраз нового типа мышления.
and then we will come to the image of a new thinking. So maybe this is my short answer to your question.
Thank you very much, Professor. At this point, I do not have more questions.
Спасибо.
Yes, and
Thank you.
very much.
Well, I have a question. I can ask in Russian. Большое спасибо за прекрасную...
Thank you so much for the beautiful presentation. And you talked about integral education and not much talked about integral upbringing. So what do you mean by integral upbringing? I'll try to answer with a certain example. Approximately 20 years ago, in some of the schools, in high schools, high education schools, they had a special discipline, engineering ethics. When they looked at ideas that in some society, and they studied those problems, and then the students were witnessed this problem that they encounter and they could solve only based on the system of values that they have to approach any problem. So all the problems are solved based on technical abilities. But what's connected to ontology, to our real existence, material existence, we need to talk about it. Those problems need to be discussed. And in one of the books that I showed in one of the slides, I tried to illustrate, based on my own experience, formulate those ideas. And that could be the subject of discussion for the audience that has complex integral approach. So this is my example from life. That would be upbringing and education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Professor Kornilov. So for all those, if you have more questions, please, you can share them in the chat and we will send them per email to Professor Kornilov to further answer them, because now we need to move on to our next speaker. So if we can share, please, the email address where our participants can share the question. Thank you. Okay, and thank you, dear Professor Kornilov, for this insightful presentation and inviting us to such deep reflection. Thank you. A great applause.